Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into some pretty strong arguments from the Doug Andrew Three-Dimensional Wealth Show. They're tackling a huge risk in retirement. You know, the idea of being rich on paper, but pretty much broke in real life. We're going to explore their take on liquidity, real estate, and what they call the ticking time bomb of taxes.
So to really get this, let's rewind the clock. Remember 2008? The financial crisis is basically the entire backdrop for their argument. I mean, it was a brutal lesson for millions of people who found out the hard way that the wealth they thought they had in their homes, well, it wasn't spendable, and it could pretty much vanish overnight.
And that whole experience leads them to ask a really fundamental question. You know, we're all taught to chase the highest possible rate of return, right? But is that really the most important thing? What if the actual key to financial security is something totally different? And their answer is, well, it's emphatic. They say forget the rate of return, forget appreciation, at least for a minute. The single most important thing about any investment, they argue, is liquidity, your ability to get your hands on your money without taking a big hit whenever you might need it.
And this slide really nails a critical difference. See, liquidity isn't just about owning valuable stuff. It's about having cash that you can access. It's the difference between wealth you have on paper and wealth you can actually go out and use.
So this brings us right to the core problem they're trying to highlight, this trap of being asset-rich but cash-poor. It's a situation they believe puts a whole lot of retirees in a really dangerous spot.
To really illustrate this, they tell a story. There's this financial professional who takes $500,000, and instead of buying just one property, he leverages it to buy 5. I mean, it sounds really smart, right? But here's the catch. The result is that all $500,000 are now completely trapped inside the walls of those buildings, totally inaccessible if an emergency pops up.
Now, you're probably thinking the same thing I was. Okay, but why not just get a loan against all that equity? It's a super common belief that equity is basically as good as cash. But the source argues that's a really dangerous fantasy, especially when the economy gets rocky.
And this slide just perfectly captures that disconnect. As a homeowner, you look at your equity and you see your money. But a lender? They see something totally different. If there's a recession and you lose your job, they honestly don't care if you have $1 million in equity. If you don't have income to make payments, you're not getting a loan. Your wealth is totally locked up.
And to show just how bad this can get, they share an even more extreme story. A woman takes a paid-off home, cashes out $1 million, and leverages that into 8 rental properties. But then the market turns, she loses her job, and the whole house of cards just collapses. She couldn't sell, she couldn't borrow, and the dominoes fell one by one until she lost not just the 8 rentals, but her original home too. All because her $1 million was no longer liquid.
Okay, so that's the financial risk. But then they move on to a different kind of problem, more of a lifestyle issue. Because even if the market is totally fine, they argue that managing rental properties in retirement comes with its own major headaches.
Yeah, and this quote says it all, doesn't it? Being a landlord is not some passive investment. It's a job. We're talking late-night phone calls, chasing down rent checks, dealing with expensive repairs that pop up out of nowhere. And they ask a simple question. Is that really how you want to be spending your golden years?
And to put some hard numbers on it, they break down a typical $400,000 rental property. That $36,000 in gross rent looks pretty good, right? But it shrinks, and fast. After you subtract expenses, maintenance, taxes, all that stuff, you're down to $24,000. Then you got to pay income tax on that. So the final actual cash in your pocket is just over $20,000. The big takeaway here is that the headline number is almost never the real number.
And finally, this brings us to the third big problem they highlight. And honestly, this one might be the sneakiest of them all. It's the gamble we're all making on taxes when we use traditional retirement accounts, you know, like 401ks and IRAs.
The whole sales pitch for these tax-deferred accounts is that you'll pay the taxes later when you're retired and in a lower tax bracket. But they challenge that idea head-on and ask, what if that core assumption is just plain wrong?
And they really dismantle that myth right here. Think about what you lose in retirement. Your house is probably paid off, so boom, that huge mortgage interest deduction is gone. Your kids are grown and out of the house. Poof, no more dependents, and you're not contributing to a 401k anymore, you're withdrawing, so that deduction is gone too. You could easily find yourself with more taxable income, not less.
This comparison really drives home the gamble you're taking. Look, if tax rates stay exactly the same forever, then deferring your taxes in a traditional IRA gets you the same result as paying them upfront in a Roth. But that is a huge if. If tax rates go up, which, let's be honest, a lot of people expect, then that big tax-deferred nest egg is going to be worth a lot less than you thought. You've just kicked the can down the road.
Okay, so after laying out these three big problems, the illiquidity, the landlord headaches, and the tax time bomb, the source offers up a solution. They propose strategically moving assets into what they call a properly structured indexed universal life policy, or IUL. In simple terms, think of it as a life insurance policy that's supercharged to also grow cash value and let you take it out completely tax-free.
So let's go back to that $400,000 rental property. The proposal is you sell it. After you pay your capital gains tax, let's say you're left with $320,000. You then take that cash and use it to fund the IUL. The goal is to turn that trapped equity into a steady, reliable, tax-free income stream. And here's the punchline. According to their illustration, the IUL can generate a slightly higher annual income than the rental property did. But here are the two game changers. This new income is completely tax-free, and it comes with zero phone calls about backed-up sewage.
But wait, it doesn't stop there. On top of providing that tax-free income for life, their model shows the money inside the policy keeps growing and growing, creating a potential multi-million-dollar tax-free legacy for your family.
So when you boil it all down, their entire argument is about a shift in mindset. It's about moving away from assets that are illiquid, taxable, and high maintenance, and moving toward assets that give you liquidity, tax-free access, and predictability. Basically, a stress-free retirement.
And after breaking down their arguments, we're left with a really powerful question to think about. At the end of the day, what does financial security actually mean to you? Is it having a huge net worth number on a spreadsheet? Or is it the peace of mind that comes from knowing you have a predictable, tax-free check coming into your bank account every single year, no matter what happens in the world?